So we have an incredible opportunity this morning. Richard+Sharp is our guest teacher, guest preacher for the morning. Richard is on staff with Operation Mobilization. He is originally from London, England, and I'll let him share a little more about what his role is at OM, but it involves teaching and evangelism and equipping and preaching. And so would y'all give a big Dogwood welcome to Richard+Sharp, please? Richard.
Wow, it's a joy to be with you. I want to introduce my honey bunny. This is Rachel. Stand up. And Rachel is from Boulder, Colorado. I met Rachel on our mission ship Logos, and 28 years ago, and chased her for 2 years on that ship. That wasn't part of the mission program. That was extracurricular. And I've been chasing her around the kitchen table ever since. Is that all right? I want to introduce also Peachtree. Stand up, Peachtree. Peachtree is a wonderful brother here, a member of this church. Peachtree is from Benin. This is my world jacket. Who could point to Benin in Africa on this jacket? Well, maybe next time. But beautiful brother, serves with us in OM. By the way, OM means on medication. The mission is off medication. So if I look quirky up here, you'll understand. But it's a joy to be with you. And came to know the Lord when I was 18 through a blind evangelist. One Wednesday night, when I realized he could see better than I could. I'd had a few pieces of the puzzle about God and Jesus, but nope, I'd never seen the picture on the puzzle box. Does that make sense? And that night he brought some more pieces of the puzzle together and showed me the picture on the puzzle box. And I found my heart beating and my knees shaking. I was sitting right by the back door at the back. The manageress of a little store, May, that I worked in for 7 years, took me one evening there. And I said, "Oh, May, if it's boring, I'll slip out." So I sat right by the back door. And I found myself walking to the front. Never forget it. Never forget it. I'd walked into that meeting with me and May, the manageress, and I walked out of that meeting with me, May, and God. Put my hand in his hand 40 years ago. Been wanting to walk with him ever since. A little bit later, I found myself at Bible school in London, England. We used to have chapel speakers every Wednesday morning, 3-piece suits, 3-point messages, very nice. And then one Wednesday morning, this character walked in. Looked like he just got out of bed. And as he walked down the aisle, now I don't remember a word of the message he preached after this. That's encouraging. But as he's walking down the aisle, New Yorker accent, he said, let me give this a try. He said, "Sorry I'm late. So what are you doing for God?" How did I do? "Sorry I'm late. So what are you doing for God?" That's all I remember. And God zeroed in on me. I remember where I was sitting, 200 students. And he said, "Richard, I want to get you moving." And I went for a summer with OM to France that summer in '75. Turned my life inside out, upside down. Joined OM that fall. And I had the joy of maybe 100 countries around the world. And I brought a little book of his. And because this is the passion of George Verwer, the founder. Out of the comfort zone. Stepping out. This won the ugly cover of the Water Year. But don't judge this book by its cover. I brought a few of these along a little table out there. I want to give this to somebody. Who would read a chapter today if I give you this book as a gift today? Oh, first hand up. Good. In fact, next Sunday I fly to Rome. Hannah, we're going to pray for a gal here at the end who's going to be part of a dance team in Portugal. And so I fly to Rome. She's going to be one of 320 or more young people that we're doing a week of equipping in Rome, Italy, and then we're going to send them out on over 40 teams all around the Mediterranean. Now, we include Portugal. It's not quite literally by the water's edge, but over 40 teams, dance teams, drama teams, sports teams. I'm going to lead a team to Malta. We're going to work in a refugee camp of young Muslim refugees. 900 of them been shipwrecked on the island of Malta. In fact, that was the first place to be evangelized in Europe. If you look in the book of Acts, Paul was shipwrecked there. So we'll be on that island. Then I'm going to go to be in the Olympics in London, my city, England. But I share that. The outreach is called Transform. And it came out of a burden of Gary. I don't know if Gary shared here many years ago, Gary Witherall. He was a buddy of mine. I was his best man at his wedding. And like me, he married an American, not the same one. But he's also an Englishman. And I prayed for him when he went to Lebanon with his wife. And I was back at the same airport in London, and only Gary was there. Only Gary was there. And this is a love story called Total Abandon. On the back it says, is what you're living for worth dying for? I want to give this book to somebody. Ooh. Read a chapter today. One other thing. Did a strange thing with a mission group, actually in Noonan, Leadership Development Institute, focused on China. And shared with them one morning, I said, I'm doing something strange with you today. I said, oh, it means on medication. And I said, I'm going to share with you how I meet with the Lord. I know that sounds a little wacky. Of course, there's no one way. And I shared it with them. I drew a diagram of 5 bubbles on a whiteboard. And afterwards, a gal said, Richard, you should put that into a journal. So I've done that. This is a little 28-day devotional. And it might be something, we've got a few copies. It might be something you might want to use for the summer. But I'd like to give this to somebody. Who would see it pays to be on the front row? Actually, the further back you are, usually more of a backslider you are. Woo! Woo! How to win friends. By the way, if you want to know about OM, you've got to be a little wacky. Take this card and check out our website. But pray for this outreach this summer. As we were worshiping, singing amazing hymns, I said, Lord, I hope this is not true. But there are probably more people gathered in churches in Tyrone this Sunday than in the whole of Portugal where Hannah's going on the dance team. There are more people gathered in church on this Sunday right now in Tyrone, little Tyrone, than the whole of the country of Portugal. And Hannah, you check it out and you tell me if I'm wrong. Where is Hannah? Is she here? Wow. On a dance team. Out on the streets. You pray for her. Why don't you pray for her every day? Starting Sunday. Every day for this gal. Become a mighty warrior, dance warrior. And we're going to pray for you at the end. And I'm going to do some equipping at Transform. And I'm going to do a simple thing with them. And I thought I'd do this with you this morning. This is kind of as I travel, you know, I meet people on planes and buses and parks and restaurants and wherever. I seek to connect with people. And there's a little fill in the blanks in the back of your bulletin insert, if you care to take that, and you could jot some of these things down. But what is at the heart of mission? What is at the heart of mission? And I think it's this. Making friends. Making friends. Connecting with people. And then introducing best friend. For me, that's the heart of ministry, the heart of missions. making friends, and introducing our best friend. I like Andrew in the Bible, always in the shadow of his brother, Peter. But I love when we first encounter Andrew in John's Gospel, chapter 1. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, that's how he was always introduced, was one of these men who'd heard what John had said and then followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We found the Messiah," which means the Christ. First thing. Hey, Peter. Probably big Peter. Extrovert Peter, outgoing Peter, gutsy Peter. Hey, Peter, you got to meet this man. The heart of missions, taking people, connecting. A little bit later when Jesus and the people he's been teaching, and they're hungry, there's no food. And it's Andrew that finds a little boy with his lunch bag and says, "Hey, let me bring you to Jesus." And Jesus takes the fishes and loaves and blesses it and multiplies it. A little bit later, Philip, one of the other disciples, comes up to him and says, he's a bit nervous, and says, "Andrew, boy, there's some Greeks that have just come up to me and said, 'Sir, we would like to meet Jesus.' And they're a little strange, and they're not kind of like us outsiders, and they have a different accent, and I'm a bit nervous, and they want to meet Jesus." And Andrew says, "Hey, welcome, come. Let's come meet Jesus." And Andrew is one of those people, whether it's his brother or a boy with his lunch bag or these Greek outsiders, hey, introducing them to his best friend Jesus. And for me, this is the heart of missions. Now, some folks are more confrontational. You know, they want to cut to the chase, and they zero in on, "Let me introduce you to my best friend." But I found if you go too fast, what can happen is you build walls. Kind of, you know, you're in my space and in my face. Now, God can use it, but very often it's just a little too quick, a little too strong. And if you're confrontational. The other side of the pendulum is, if you're a more relational person, you're great at making friends and connecting people, but you never get to introducing your best friend. Anyone relate? Somebody at work, you've known them years, chat with them, sports and family stuff, but never introduced your best friend. And here the problem is, you build a bridge, but it becomes a bridge to nowhere. And the sweet spot is in the middle here. I say, "Lord, help me to make friends, build bridges, connect with folks, and then at the right moment, introduce my best friend." That makes sense? And I've found connecting with people, whoever they are, making friends, one of the things I do is to ask questions. And one of the questions I'll ask about family and work and what have you. And then I'll say, "Hey, could I ask you something?" If they say yes, I say, "If you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be?" And I do this. If you could wish one thing from God, for you today, what would that be? One thing? Yeah. If you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be? In fact, turn to the person next to you. All right? And ask them, If you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be? And then they ask you that question. If you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be? Just ask. Just turn to the person next to you. One thing, just one. And then when you've heard that one thing, just pray for each other. One of you pray for the one thing of the other person, and then just pray for each other. Just a one or two sentence prayer for that one thing. Just do that right now. I've asked that question of hundreds of people. All walks of life, all situations. And what I love about asking a question is, I've found connecting with people, making friends it's the ear before the tongue. We tend to think of evangelism as I've got it, you need it, you're going to get it. And we roll up and undump the truck on them. Boom. And here's this great big mound of stuff we've unloaded on them. But I've actually found, put the ear before the tongue. Listen. Interesting, when I asked that question, if you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be? I actually learned a bit about them. I was in London earlier this year in a big shopping mall just built for the Olympics. Right outside the window was the new stadium. A man was standing there. I got chatting to him and said, hey, he was waiting for his daughter in the bathroom. I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, if you could wish one thing from God today for you, what would that be? He said, I'm a Muslim. A man in his 60s. I'm a Muslim. And then he said that all the sins of my past would be forgiven and a way would be made open for me. That's what he said. Isn't that wild? That all the sins of my past would be forgiven and a way would be made open for me. What I love about that question is also this. I feel today it's the heart before the head. And I love about a question like that is it's not a head question. You don't get into a kind of a head-butting thing, of trying to outsmart each other and arguments in that. There's a place for that to give a reason for the hope that we have. But I found that people answer from here. One lady said, my car needs fixing. It can be as, that's what it is. Actually, I was walking around the lake, the little Tyrone Lake. Saw a little lady with a dog he said, the dog saying hello. I knelt down, stroked the little doggy, got chatting to her, asked her that question. And she said, there's no peace in my family. I'd love my family to come together. And then I respond and say, would it be okay if I said a short prayer? And I do this, a short prayer for that one thing. Would that be okay? One sentence. Would that be okay? And I'll just say a short prayer. Just quietly, just for that one thing. In fact, she grabbed me by the hand afterwards. She said, Richard, you do not know what this means to me today. And we live in a cynical world today. Organized religion, forget it. But I found when you just scratch below the surface and connect with people, you can meet them at their point of need, wherever they are. And I find it's the heart before the head. We'll get to the head. I also find here that it's do before done. That question, if you could wish one thing from God today for you, is God wanting God to do something for you today. I'm not yet going to go to, let me tell you what God done for you 2,000 years ago. And I don't find I can start right there with the done. I want to get there. But I find when I can ask them, what would you like God to do for you today? Whatever it is. What would you like God to do for you today? We'll get to the done. And I'll pray for them. And then when I sense there's some time and interest, I'll say, you had one wish from God for you today. God has a wish for you. God has a wish for you. One wish. And I'll say, if I could show you with these 5 colors what that one wish is, would you be interested? If I could show you with these 5 colors what that one wish is, would you be interested? And I always ask, don't force, always ask, would that be okay? Maybe they'll say, well, how long would it take? Oh, maybe 3 minutes max. Would that be okay? If I could show you with these 5 colors. Did it to a young guy. He wanted to, when I asked him the first question, he said that I could use, he was a black guy, I could use my hip-hop music my rap music for a living. I said, could I pray that? Could I pray? He kind of looked at me as if, would God be interested in that? And I prayed for his rap music. He'd make a living. And then I sensed time and interest, and I just said, if I could show you with these 5 colors God's one wish for you, would you be interested? And he said, yes. Yes. And here's another little principle that I do. It's show before tell. If I say to somebody, if I could tell you God's one wish for you, would you be interested? Doesn't sound so good, does it? People don't want to hear. But I found when I say, if I could show you with these 5 colors God's one wish for you, would you be interested? Could I do it? Would it be okay? Young man in that mall in London, another young man, a teenager, asked him his wish. He said that I would find the meaning to life. I said, would it be okay if I showed you with these 5 colors how you can find the meaning to life? I found it when I was 18. You're 15, you could find it now. And he said yes. And so I just walked, I said, yellow, we can pop that color up. Yellow, that's the color of gold, like my wedding ring. And you and I are of great value to God. In fact, God made us that we might have a friendship with him. But why is it that God seems unreal, far away? In fact, we sometimes wonder if he's there, don't we? And he nodded his head, yeah. I said, the reason is the black, because you and I are on the dark side and God is on the light. Because we've done wrong, haven't we? And here's a principle. As I share, it's us before you. I use us language. You and I are of great value to God. You and I have done wrong, haven't we? Then I'll ask a couple of very comfort questions. Have you ever told a lie? I asked him that. I have. He said yes. I said, you ever taken something that didn't belong to you? I have. He said yes. Then ask another question. Have you ever wished somebody was out of your life? No longer around? Not even living? Ooh, that question. You ever wish somebody was out of your life? If we tell a lie, that makes us liars. Take something that doesn't belong to us, we're thieves. If we wish somebody was out of our life, that's like bitterness and hatred. That makes us murderers in our hearts before God. And those things cut us off from God now, and when we die, we'll be cut off forever. And I asked him, do you like that idea? He said, no. I said, nor do I, nor does God. And so 2,000 years ago, God went and did something about it. And I said, think of my hand as you and me, and this hand as Jesus. And God took all our lies and put them on Jesus, and as if Jesus became a liar. And God took all our stealing, put it on Jesus, if Jesus became a thief. And God took our bitterness and hatred and put it on Jesus, if Jesus became a murderer. He who knew no sin became sin for us. And when I shared that, I looked into his eyes, and I do this because it's at that moment I know if it's going to connect. If it's going to. And he did that for you and me. That you and I, the white is that we might become pure, forgiven, clean on the inside. And the green is the color of new life. And begin a friendship with God. And then I reached out my hand to him, as I do with everyone. I say, God is reaching out his hand to you right now. Won't grab your hand, but he's saying, would you take my hand? Would you come my way, not yours? Could we begin a friendship? And I hold out my hand to them, held my hand to him. I'll say, God reached out his hand to me when I was 18 years of age one evening. And if you want to take his hand, I'll just come back and say, I've got to say, I'm so sorry for the wrong that I've done. And thank you that Jesus took my place on the cross. And please, God, would you forgive me? I want to go your way, not mine. And I use those three simple words, thank you, sorry, thank you, and please. And I said, Michael, would you like to take his hand? And he said, yes. And I led him in a prayer of commitment. Then I said, Michael, I'd love to give this to you. In fact, his girlfriend joined him part way through, and she put her trust in, took God's hand as well. And I was with a gal, Yvonne, and I said, could we each give you this wristband? Would you put this on today? And would you wear it and go show a friend or a family member and tell them that how you began a friendship with God? Would you do that for me? And they both took them. And I brought some of these little wristbands and a little script along. But I want to challenge you this summer. I want to challenge you this next 24 hours. Say, Lord, let me ask that first question. If you could wish to somebody today. There'll be a little card out there that you can pick up that has the outline of what I've given you here. Would you ask somebody that question? Could even text that question to somebody. Get on the phone. And what about this summer? Take a wristband. Get a wristband. Wear it. Wear it at work. Keep it on. And just say, Lord, let me have opportunities to share with somebody and introduce my best friend. When I share with somebody, sometimes they say, I'm not ready. Or, hey, that's fine for you, not for me. I'll say, that's okay. And I'll say, God will reach out his hand to you every day of your life. But when you die, you will go to grab his hand, and it will no longer be there. He'll have taken it away on that day. Because if you will not take his hand in this life, he will not take your hand in the next life. And here's a principle, I may not get to them all, is I warn with good news, but I have to also warn. And God's hand will be reaching out to you every day of your life till the moment you die. And then if you go to reach out for it, it won't be there. Because if you chose to live without God in this life, he will choose to live without you in the next. And as we close, I wonder if there's somebody here, you know right now God is reaching out his hand to you and saying, would you take my hand? And I want to lead you in a simple prayer of saying sorry, thank you, and please. Maybe you're somebody who took his hand once, but you kind of slipped away. And you're here today and you say, I want to take God's hand afresh today. And you can make this your prayer as well. Dear God, I'm so sorry for the wrong that I've done. Just say that in your heart. Oh God, I'm sorry for the wrong that I've done. And for going my own way. And thank you that Jesus took my sin in his hands on the cross for me. And please, God, would you forgive me? I want to take your hand. I want to go.